You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. All right, we're back for another episode of Cards to the Moon. I'm Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram, and co-hosting with me as always is Hyung from Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. Okay, so off the top, I think we need to be accountable for some of our opinions we made last episode, and one of them was what we thought the Upper Deck Radiance triple on-card auto of Kobe, MJ, and LeBron, graded BGS 8.5 and numbered to 5, was going to sell for in the PWCC auction that recently closed, I believe, on Sunday. So at the time of our recording, if you guys remember last week, bidding was at around 160K, and we guessed it would close anywhere from 400,000 to $500,000. Well, we were way off. It actually closed at 216,000. So what are we saying here? You know, are we saying we suck at guessing high-end card values, or
I think it's kind of impossible, to be honest. Nowadays, like, you know, any card could go, you know, so high, right? But then
you can just rip.
Yeah, you just don't know. And we're talking so casually, like, you know, only $216,000, right? So yeah. I mean, it's tough when you get into that level because we don't know, you know, the dynamics or anything revolving around, you know, who's the buyer and, you know, and all that, and the timing of the market too, right? So it's always tough even to, you know, speculate. I mean, it's fun. At the end of the day, we're way off, but I mean, it's still a healthy sale if you think about it. I guarantee you that's still probably a record sale for that card. It has to be.
I believe it was.
It was. Yeah.
I believe John said $1 million.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for keeping me accountable. That 216 sale just proves I know absolutely nothing about cards, so don't listen to anything I say.
No, that's not fair. Yeah, you're right, Hyung. Like, at that level, like, there's so few comps, right, to go by. So we're kind of guessing, and you're right. It could be the timing of the auction too. Like, maybe it was just wasn't a good time for the sale. But you're right.
It was a nice card though. I would say that if Beauty. Like looking at it from like a 216K, I would say based on previous sales that we've seen, I think that would have been somewhat of a deal. As crazy as that sounds.
Right? Yeah. If when we're talking all-time Grail cards, and some cards are selling for $3, $4, $5, $1 million, that seems. I don't know.
You just have to erase 3 zeros. So think you get it's like a $4,000 card, and you got it for $2,000.
Yeah.
It's a deal.
A steal. Yeah. You know, like I put that poll up this past week. You know, comparing the triple auto of that card versus the triple logo man that we also talked about last week of Steph Curry, Giannis, and KD, the Panini Flawless triple logo man. And in that poll, it wasn't even close. Like, I think by the time the poll ended, almost 500 people voted, and it was 75% would rather have the autograph card, the triple auto. But I still can't shake off that feeling that the triple logo man is going to sell for way more than 260.
Right? Yeah. It's all the broke people that want the autos. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot more. I guess from a logical perspective, when people think, okay, investment, you know, they see the autos and they're like, you know what, that's logically, it makes sense, right? But I don't know about like the triple logo man. Like, I don't, to the logic, I think a lot of people are like scratching their heads kind of saying, well, you're not really getting an auto. You're not getting anything that's like personal from them. Right. Whereas from a collection standpoint, you got the autographs. Right. So that was at least my justification on why I would choose the auto over the logo min. But you know what? Like we always say, the market will dictate.
For sure. All right. I also wanted to quickly address the Drake story again about his foray into the sports card world. He's been ripping cases of Panini Flawless Basketball looking for that LeBron triple logo man card, but instead he got another huge hit, which was a Ja Morant 1/1 auto patch card. John, you brought up an interesting point off air. Does the fact that Drake pulled this 1/1 card make this Ja Morant card worth more than it already would be? You know, like as more celebs get in on the game and do live breaks, does that inflate the price just because a celebrity pulled it? What do you guys think?
I think, you know what? It was a question I had for you guys, and I'm starting to believe, you know, in the short run, maybe not the long run of this year's Flawless, but I'm sure it has an influence because we're seeing the prices of boxes of Flawless skyrocket, right? And I'm sure, you know, if I don't really think there are people out there calculating the number of boxes that are floating around and seeing them being ripped. So they're calculating, okay, there's less and less supply, so obviously the prices are going up. I think it has a lot more to do with the marketing side of it and seeing Drake and Shine 150 and Ken Golden ripping live on air for an hour. That has a huge influence, and everybody wants to kind of get on the action. So I don't know. For me, if you were to see, especially that one clip of Drake pulling the Ja 1/1, that would probably become a pretty popular meme or a pretty popular internet clip within the sports card world. And that would mean most people would recognize that Ja 1/1, which would mean if one of us three had it, you know, damn sure we're going to be saying this was the one that Drake pulled. Right? So I think it for sure will have an influence on the price.
That'll be on my eBay listing if I sold the card.
Well, the question is, will the NFT be worth more? Meaning what was Jeff Wilson's moments,
right? Or
having that as an NFT of Drake pulling that 1/1, right? So, but yeah, I think whoever, you know, I think there's extreme value actually. If it's a 1/1 and Drake's the one who pulled it, how are you going to get it? Is he even selling it? Right. Exactly. So I don't know. It could be one of those legend cards, you know, that end up having extreme value just because of the status of Drake, right? But I guess a lot of people would assume that, and I would say it's like 50-50. I could see people saying, oh, it's pointless, it's not worth anything, but I could see people also saying, hey, this was the card that was pulled by Drake, so it fetches a premium, right? So I wouldn't pay a premium, to be honest. I love Drake. He's a Toronto boy, but yeah, I don't think it will fetch a premium in my opinion.
Yeah. I think in terms of the boxes, the price of boxes going up, like at that point, like who can afford those boxes, right? It's people with deep pockets, and when you have that much money, it doesn't really matter. Like, okay, that's what the price is, I'm gonna buy it anyways.
And I think that's a lot of the people's complaints with celebrities coming into the space. You know, we talk about all the positives in terms of the attention it gets and the marketing for the hobby, but I think a lot of people get a little bitter because it drives obviously the cost of the boxes up, and you know they're ripping, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product, and you know for most of us, hundreds of thousands of dollars is a lot of money. So you know it's unrealistic when we see it. There's a bit of bitterness and kind of like negativity that goes that way. So I could see, I guess, people not being happy about the whole Drake thing. Sure. And even just celebrities in general or influencers in general. That's what I'm kind of seeing is the hate for influencers in the hobby. It's kind of like you could see there's a divide with, I guess, the hobbyist and I guess the investor, right? So and then there's a bridge between the two that like kind of like believe in kind of like both of them, I guess.
Yeah. That's a legit point for sure. Pros and cons.
Right. You know, it's so funny. There's so many levels to the demographics of collectors, and in each stage, what they complain about the new demographics coming in. And what I mean by that is, the other day I was at a local card shop, and this old guy came in, old school collector. We're talking like 65 years old, and he came in to just buy like a cardboard box to put, like, he was going to rip some wax and put it into a cardboard box. He's like, can I get a cardboard box, please? And the guy's like, yeah, it's $2.50. And he's like, what? $2.50? That's insane. He's like, this sports card, like, this is nonsense now. Like, I can't deal with this, you know? Like, it was $1.75 before, now it's $2.50. It's like we're talking 75 cents. But he is just like, I think he spent 15, 20 minutes just going off on the poor workers, saying like, this is ridiculous. It's changed so much. So it's kind of interesting to view like the really old school, and then there's us who are also a little bit of an older demographic, and then all the newer guys. And every stage there's something to complain about. There's always going to be the Scroogers that say, no, this new stuff, these NFTs are ruining the game or whatever, right?
Right. I always see that, because I always read through comments on, to see where everybody's perspective is at. And there's a lot of people that I guess are against the whole technology, and the true hobbyists, they miss the hobby, I guess, what it used to be, right? So I know there's that battle, but like I'm saying, everything evolves, and including the card market. And we could complain about all these issues all we want, but who's essentially the one doing anything to change that, right? So it's like, if we're not the first one to volunteer to change the way it is, then your opinion really doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day. So I hope that, people like that take that more seriously, because I feel like we could better the hobby. There's so much talent within the hobby. Even like people like Drake, it's like if you open up, the resources and the minds and the people that, are essentially smart in this world, right?
Right.
I believe the market will be better, right? And even though there's going to be growing pains with all of this, with the hatred of like Drake and all these influencers, kind of, I guess, getting into the hobby, I think it's overall it's needed, and change is always good, even though it might not be favorable to us, the hobbyists. I think we have to open it with open arms, and also input as well. If there's something that we don't like about the hobby, then start a business, start an app that solves that problem, instead of being the first one to always complain about that issue, right? Of course there's going to be issues, right? But we need the people, right, to stand up and kind of do something about it, if they're gonna only just complain, right? That's my 2 cents on just and because I see a lot of influencers and people like Jeff Wilson, Gary V, they get hit pretty hard, and rightfully so. It comes with the territory, with kind of like their audience. But at the end of the day, they're the ones who are taking the chances to see what the potential is. And we need more of that. And that's what I welcome. Whether it's a bust or not, if everybody does their own due diligence and research, I believe you'll make your smart investments, right? And as we do that as individuals, the hobby will get better.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And speaking of the hobby evolving, and speaking of Gary Vee, one of the influencers, last thing I really wanted to touch upon before we go on to our next segment is the zerocool inaugural release of Veefriends trading cards. And if you haven't seen the secondary sales on eBay lately, it's through the roof, right? Yeah. Like, these cards are going for thousands of dollars. There are only 800 boxes released to the public. So there's definitely a short supply or limited supply. So that's part of it. But what do you guys think of Veefriends?
Oh man, no filter here. So I'm just saying this. I'm just saying this from like what I see. Obviously, for me, my take. I have my own opinions about it. It might be different than other people's majority, because I find because SGC just posted their first graded Veefriend cards.
Yeah,
right.
And if you look at the comments, absolutely just gets trashed, just like nonstop. And this is part of what I was talking about, right? It was like it got trashed. Yeah, I don't see I guess I wouldn't buy it. Mm-hmm. And I think the big issue a lot of people had was like the secondary eBay sales, for instance. Like we talked about shill bidding on last episode, right, or a couple episodes ago. Like these are the perfect candidates for shill bids, and you kind of see it happening on it. So it leaves a bad taste, and it goes back to kind of like Gary V's pumping and dumping, or Gary V has the audience to just kind of like sell to these guys and make money and just get bag holders, for instance, right? So, and rightfully so, that's all valid points. But for me, it's like, that's again an eBay thing that eBay needs to address and stay on top of. Like, it's not the founders of these new companies that are trying new things and seeing where this technology goes, right? So I see a lot of hatred again, and I get it. I wouldn't buy it either. But I guarantee you, the non-hobbyists, there's going to be some hobbyists that buy into it and they see it. But we're talking new investors that are coming into this territory that have deep pockets, that understand kind of like markets, any market, whether it's crypto, whether it's cards, any new market, you're going to see a spike in initial IPOs. And after that, it's either, a long trend, bullish or down, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I just seen the, SGC release their first graded V cards. So I think it got really, really bad reviews from the hobby perspective. And that's kind of why I brought it all up earlier, kind of saying, well, here's both perspectives. I see from the hobbyist perspective of why they don't like it. But at the end of the day, complaining is really not going to do anything. If you hate eBay because of shilling, then create a platform that doesn't do that, right? Or do something that will better the hobby, right? So that was my point. I think a lot of people have opinions on it, but the market again speaks. But there's issues like shilling that really cause, I guess, people to be hesitant, right? So
right,
yeah. Just some of those cards, though. I think on Card Ladder, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. That they start to verify those sales. So definitely some of those Veefriends cards are verified sales.
Oh, nice.
Just wanted to point that out. So
For sure,
despite it being thousands of dollars, some of those are definitely verified sales.
And that's what those are the technologies that we need to kind of like better it, right? So I think I was just reading it from like the hobbyist, the salty hobbyist perspective, the hobbyist that absolutely cannot go on with life because of this release.
But a verified sale could also be like a sucker that fell for the shill bidding, right?
It could be.
There's a couple of sales that went up and they're $1,500. They could be fake sales, and then the third guy in is like, "Hey man, $1,300, I'm down for that," and then boom, that's a verified sale, right? So
all speculation.
Totally, I know. Man, Veefriends is a tough one. We just talked about how there's levels of complaints and when things change. This is like a prime example. Like for myself, I'm more of an old school sports card collector. So when you see something like Veefriends, this is not sports card collecting. So immediately the look of the card has nothing to do with like a sports athlete. It looks like nonsense. Like even the designs and the little, the pictures that are made by Gary Vee, like to me, it's not appealing at all, but that's completely fine. And this one really, I battle with it because obviously there's these like, there's these takes on the shilling and prices and it's all overhyped. But at the same time, Gary Vee is very much a gigantic influencer, right? This guy influences not only, people all over the world. He influences athletes, celebrities. And when you have his product at $800, that's nothing. I could totally see these prices being, I'm sure there is some shilling, but at the same time, $800 is nothing. And all of these buyers, like Hyung said, these are all probably not even sports card collectors. These are all NFT, new age investors that are buying these boxes that know Gary Vee from outside of the sports card world, right? So I think the sports card people, like the three of us, and a lot of the folks that are making comments, they're getting confused. They're like, why would sports card people be like buying this nonsense? Look at these cards, they're garbage. This is ridiculous, right? But you have to remember, it might be none of us that are buying this. It could be somebody, whole bunch of people from the outside, right? So this one, if someone were to ask me, hey, is Veefriends, is it overhyped? Is this the floor? Are we missing on the boat? Like, is this a good investment? Man, I don't know. I don't know the answer on this one. I can't. It's really, really tough to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's so early with these kind of newer different kind of cards being released. And, like we were saying, like things are evolving and we're learning the pros and cons of these, new products. And like case in point, the one thing I didn't like about this release by zerocool is that one buyer can buy up to 40 or bid up to 40 boxes. And I think there were 2 buyers that maxed out and got 40 boxes of them because they were willing to pay $21.50 per.
That's 5%, right? I guess
so 40
right. Of the entire stock.
That's 5% of all supply, which is crazy.
That's
right.
crazy.
And 2 buyers did that, so that's 10% gone right there, right? Yeah. So like maybe the next time I think, and I'm not the only one complaining about that, and I wasn't willing to pay $2,000 for a box, but just to make it a little bit more fair, I think the suggestion is that you cap it right to 5, not for 40 to get the whales out of there, right? So that's one suggestion, but I think moving forward, there's going to be a hybrid collector, and I would count myself as part of it. Like I am definitely first and foremost a sports card collector. That's my first love, but I do also have a Veefriend Series 1 NFT, right?
You would.
And that's been, sorry?
You would.
Hey, it's
not in a bad
way.
way. Hey, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
I just say you would.
we can harp on Clark all we want. He's laughing to the bank. So
yeah,
it's been a lucrative investment for me, yes, but no, there's like hybrid collectors where we like to collect both things, and I think moving forward too, it's not just like black and white. Like I'm a sports card collector, you're a non-sports card collector. No, it's why does it have to be that way?
Yeah. No, right? I agree, and that's where it's going. And we talked about this previously, how crypto is going to play in with cards, right? And that's why we won't know, because this is what we're seeing. It's going to be a hybrid of things: sports cards collecting, NFT technology. We don't know, right? Yeah. So
all of it. And then actually one of the buyers that got all 40, I believe, was Backyard Breaks. They had that controversy with the gold kaboom of Trevor Lawrence. So they're I believe one of the ones that bought all the maxed out with the 40, and they're known for breaking sports cards, but they're also obviously breaking these Veefriends trading card sets. So you're already seeing a mix in terms of like what breakers are doing too. It's not just exclusively sports cards.
Right.
It's also these non-sports card products. So yeah, evolution. It's inevitable, and I think the sooner we just kind of embrace it and try to make it better, I think it's better for the hobby in general.
I will say before, like, I know it wasn't like a positive talk about zerocool, but like for me, I always appreciate what Gary Vee's doing, regardless. Even Jeff Wilson, all these guys that do stuff for the hobby. We need people like that. Like I said in previous episodes, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I believe in people that create. Right. So anybody that is taking, that risk and doing it, I commend them, because it's not easy to do. And at the end of it, every entrepreneur knows that, Jeff Wilson, all these guys, they're doing it because there's a reason to do it, because there's a need for it. And that's what gets us better. Right. And that's why I know zerocool was, Gary Vee's thing. I'm a Gary Vee fan.
It's actually Josh Luber's
thing. Josh Luber. Sorry. Yeah. I was talking about
Fanatics,
the
Veefriends product itself.
Veefriends product. Exactly. Right. We kind of, I guess, gave our opinions on it. But I will say, like I said, I respect, all of them, the people that, are, putting all the time and effort and collecting all these resources to pull stuff like this off, because it's not easy at the end of the day, and it's easy to criticize it. So by no means am I sitting in the stands and just pointing fingers. Just want to make that clear.
Agreed. All right, good discussion there. I think our off the top was probably longer than we wanted to run, but that's okay. I thought we got some good points in there. But let's move on now then to hobby headlines. So I'm sure many of our listeners who are hobbyists and sports card collectors are also into fantasy sports. And with the baseball season about to start, those who are into fantasy baseball are prepping for their drafts and researching who are the sleepers they can target this season. So I wanted to apply that, generally speaking, to sports cards. So do you guys have any sleeper picks like sports cards of players you feel are undervalued for whatever reason and that they might be good to target right now. And it doesn't have to be just baseball. It can be for any sport. So maybe for this segment, we can name 2 or 3 specific or general sports cards or players that we personally like. And then we can see if the rest of us agree or disagree. All right. So who wants to go first?
Honestly, for me, I always told myself never use fantasy logic to invest because it never went hand in hand. But people did use fantasy logic, which when I say fantasy logic, I mean day-to-day results. Because for me, sports card investing is about investing in someone's career or their upside, and some people they invest in a shorter time period, right? So it all depends on, I guess, where you're looking at it from. Because if you're just out there to flip, your periods are going to be very short, right?
That's fair.
So,
right.
So for me, it was always, in terms of sleepers, it's always the GOATs or the potential GOAT type players that, you know, haven't changed since when I got in the game in 2019, or 2018, 2019, when it was like the Acuñas, the Vlads, you know, the Tatis of the world, the Sotos. I'm still on them because I believe in their career. It never changed. And as they play every year, I get more excited because they're just adding to their resume of the so-called career that I projected in the first place, right? So for me, I guess from a sleeper perspective, I wouldn't say player, but I'm going to go sleeper perspective as in sets. Like we talked about, like Bowman's Best, the Topps Finest, SGC 10s, PSA 9, BGS 9.5s. To me, those are all sleeper picks of those players that I mentioned, the Sotos, the Tatis, the Vlads, you know, even the Wanders. If, like, I know prices are extremely high right now for Wander, but there's going to be a point in time where, you know what, some cards are just cheap, right? And I think it's just a matter of monitoring, I guess, prices from maybe day to day if you're flipping, week to week, month to month, year to year, if you're in from a long-term perspective, right? So for me, like sleeper picks, I always go with the GOATs. I think guys like Tiger Woods, for instance, are extremely, extremely cheap right now. Obviously, the non-autos and stuff like that, the grail cards of Tiger. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of opportunity in sleeper picks in that as well. So yeah, for me, majority of the side is the values in the SGC 10s and the PSA 9s and the BGS 9.5s of the GOAT players.
Okay, yeah, I like that perspective. Definitely taking the long-term view there. So that's fair for sure.
Yeah.
John, you got anything to add?
Yeah, my sleeper pick is our boy Keston here. No, I'm just joking.
That's very short term.
You know what? You know, with the market, like I'm gonna kind of play off of what Hyung was saying. With the market kind of correcting itself right now, or has been correcting itself for the past 12 months, it's really I don't know, risky or not risky to go for players outside of the ones that are traded on a day-to-day basis, like the quote-unquote liquid players, Soto, Acuña, you know, Luka, et cetera, right? But if you are going for sleeper picks, I don't have many in particular, but, you know, this is going to sound very Homer, but to me, when I've been looking at the past 2 years and trying to study what moves cards, team success for team sports is a big deal in a lot of cards, right? And like I was saying, it sounds Homer of me to say this, but the Blue Jays have done a lot to kind of load up here. It looks like they're really going all in, right? So I think if you just look at teams that you think are going to be contenders in any sport, okay, I think these 4 are going to be contenders. In baseball, these 4 are going to be contenders. In basketball, look at the players within those contenders and then see which ones are the low-hanging fruits that are super cheap, right? So for Blue Jays, you know, obviously Vladdy is the king right now in the investment world, but, you know, he's not really a sleeper because he gets talked about a lot. But in terms of pricing, I think Bo Bichette is definitely a sleeper that may be a high-end player that's on a team that could be a contender, right? So even if you wanted to take a risk, like, you know, if he can stay healthy, George Springer, you know?
Sure.
we're not. I mean, we're not talking big dollars, but when you're talking a $40 rookie card can go to $100. Like I could see that happening if he stays healthy, right? He can totally have like a quasi MVP season. So that's probably the type of strategy I would try to take in finding sleepers. Now, are there like true sleepers? Maybe, somebody like Cedric Mullins could be like when you talk about like sleeper, that could be like a sleeper. And then in cards in general, I think, cards that people should be jumping on with like the basketball market being so low. I think Luka and Nikola Jokic, oh my gosh, I think those guys should be non-stop buys right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I didn't think the discussion would go this way, but I like it. I like that we're, talking about ideas on like how to identify certain sleepers with different timelines. That's a good point to bring out as well. Yeah, for me, I had a few in mind, but in the context of what we're talking about generally, like I like your point, John, that you just mentioned about picking guys on successful teams. And I'll take it a step further, picking guys on big market teams. That's always usually a good play. Like Arizona Diamondbacks, probably, the best player on that team is probably going to have a limited value. But if you look at the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the top 2-3 guys on those teams, they might have, the potential to pop. So another thing is like, yeah, I didn't mean for the fantasy kind of comparison to kind of be the way we think about sleepers in the context of sports cards. But I do look at fantasy rankings, to tell you the truth, just to see like which guys have hype. Like usually the top 5 guys are like, okay, these guys are like, whether it's fantasy or not, it's hype. Like if you look at the top 5 now, it's like Juan Soto, Tatis, Acuna, all the guys we're talking about anyways. Obviously, they're also going to be in the top ranking of fantasy sports. Right. But that's it. There's one guy that's in the top 5 that I don't hear anyone talking about. So this is one of my sleeper picks. I think like a composite projection of 2022. Let's see if you can guess. He's expected to hit 26, 27 homers, over 100 runs, 87 RBIs. This might be the giveaway. 30 plus stolen bases and 305 batting average. That's a 5-tool player. Who is that?
Who has 30 bags?
I don't know.
Not too many.
That'll be the giveaway.
30 bags. Are we in the American League or National League?
What did you say?
American League
Turner?
Oh, Trey
Turner.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Trey Turner.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about the Jays, but the Dodgers are stacked, right? Yeah, this coming year.
Trey Turner.
And
that's
Mookie
true.
Betts leading off, most likely.
Yeah, the addition of Freeman. Is stacked. Oh my gosh.
So
especially if Bellinger can pick it back up again. Holy cow.
Yeah, I think Bellinger is projected to be the 7th batter in that lineup.
Right. You know what? That's interesting to say that, Clark.
Is our boy Gavin Lux a sleeper?
Well, he's got to play. He's got to find himself into the lineup.
I know. Sorry,
you know what?
Go ahead.
I was saying Trey Turner is interesting because he's a guy like kind of like a Brandon Lowe to me, where what do they have to do to get hobby love? It's one of those things, and I just see Trey Turner's price, and you're absolutely right. Like for what he's worth, his card value should be way higher than it is. Right?
Yeah,
I agree, but that's the question: is will the market ever catch up to that reality, right?
I guess that is the $1 million question, like to see if that will ever happen or when that will happen. But yeah, if you look at Trey Turner's first Bowman Chrome BGS 9.5, it's going for $300 for a stud player like that,
right?
Compared to like the other guys in the top 5 of fantasy rankings, Acuna, Soto, we know how much those cards go for. So then it's not even close to that ballpark. And you could look at his Topps Chrome, like his color refractor blue is going for $550 BGS 9.5. So like I buy Trey Turner almost every season, like at the beginning, and I always flip at the end, and I 2x it every year. So last couple years ago I bought it for $60, his first Bowman, and I sold it for $150, and now it's at $300. Like it's steadily going up, but I want to see that 3-4x return at some point because his stats will show that he's very consistent, and one of the few guys that have high average, high stolen bases, and almost 30 homers. Man,
I feel
that's a good point.
I feel like it's like the way the market is obviously, you know, the rookie is the chase, right? So prices are way inflated rookie year. It bleeds into the second year. Is the player going to do well? If he does well, this guy's the superstar. His prices go
Right.
up. And then third, fourth year, yeah, he's, you know what, he hits 30, steals 30. He's supposed to do that. Prices kind of dip, right?
Sure.
Kind of like what we're seeing with Trae Young. And then towards the end of, if they make it through that like 9 year career, and now they're chasing, okay, this guy's been doing this for 9-10 years. This is where it kind of goes through that second hump, and that lull of 8 year period of, I guess that's where Rafael Devers and, you know, all these other, you know, superstars, even Bryce Harper, for instance. I think he's going to have a time where his prices are just going to explode and correct itself at the end of the day.
That's a good sleeper. That's a good sleeper.
Yeah, that's a great
like
sleeper. But Bryce Harper, I think he gets no hobby love, right? So it's like,
Right.
that's why it's there's a lot of opportunity everywhere. That's why I love the sports card industry. Honestly, we talk about the Sotos, Acuñas, Tatises always, right? And I only talk about that because the liquidity, like John said, that's very, very important to me. And you know, you could always move your money, right? So, but you're right. There's so much opportunity in guys like Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, long term, where you know what, you're not worried about everyday prices because you believe that they're going to be Hall of Famers at the end of the day. Like Rafael Devers, like he's so good, and his prices get absolutely no love, right? So, so these guys are all, I believe, good buys in the long term. The question is, you know, we get so caught up again with the everyday flips. Is day trading, man. Get out of the day trading. You know?
Right. I was gonna say after you mentioned all that, I guess I'm looking at the long term too with some of these cards. But I think like another good thing to think about is like, as we believe the hobby's gonna grow, you know, it's a good thing for all of us who are in the game right now, because you know, it's not all going to be day trader types. There's going to be legit sports fans that become sports card collectors, and they'll be the ones also like rooting on their favorite player or their favorite team, right? And there'll be a market for those players like Trey Turner, hopefully down the line, Bryce Harper, and Rafael Devers is another good pick. So yeah, and, you know, like in basketball, I had one actually that kind of fits in those lines. He's not like the new shiny rookie anymore, but Donovan Mitchell, I think we talked about it like in one of our earlier episodes, right? Yeah. Like stud for Utah Jazz. And I only bring him up now because there's like, it's just pure rumor, but there's talks about him potentially joining the New York Knicks next season, maybe working out a trade.
There's always a rumor about the New York Knicks. The poor New York fans, man.
Yeah, I get it. I get the Knicks are just wretched, but I mean, like, if Mitchell went to the Knicks and you know, they just kind of revamped their team a little bit. I guess the general point I wanted to bring out too is like, you know, looking for players where you hear the news of them going to better teams from like a small market team or a mediocre team, and that might, if you do your homework and you know, you kind of anticipate some of those moves, that's another way to find good sleepers. So, you know, I looked at Donovan Mitchell's 2017 Silver Prism PSA 10 cards, $600.
That's crazy.
And a pop of like under 600.
And I think that's what everybody, like, or at least I encourage and everybody should do, is look at the, like, draw parallels, extrapolate some data, you know, take a look at like Ja Morant Silver Prism, you know, PSA 10, $2,000, right. Donovan Mitchell, $600. One is high, one is low, or in between, somewhere in between there, right? So that's always a good way, or at least how I started when I collected cards, especially the higher end stuff. I'm like, okay, where's like Mike Trout's Bowman Chrome? Why is Bowman Chrome so expensive? Okay, Bowman First Chrome is the Grail cards. You know, it's like, okay, color Bowman Chrome now. Like, you know what I mean? You draw parallels and say, okay, this is way too overpriced. Maybe it's a good time to sell, because I don't see, you know, the price is sustaining itself, right? Because you look at, you know, other cards that are, you know, similar players that are 3-4 years down the road, right? You should be able to extrapolate data and kind of draw parallels of what's inflated and what's not, right?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I kind of like how this segment went better, just because it's like we're talking generally, but it forces all our listeners to kind of essentially do their own research on their players, instead of us telling like, here, go target these guys if you believe us.
Do not take any advice from us. We're just we're just talking on a Wednesday. L's. On a Wednesday, it's a Wednesday night, I guess, and we had a long day of work, and we're just talking sports cards like just boys, right? So
yeah.
Our advice is to take the opposite picks of what
exactly.
we're talking about.
You probably be right about 50% of the time.
All right. Before we go on into our next segment, let me quickly ask you guys then, conversely, I don't know if you have any in mind. If you don't, I'll name a couple. But are there any cards that are cheap, quote unquote cheap right now, but you're still staying away from because you think it'll still go down? You know
what's so funny? My cheap but stay away player is Donovan Mitchell.
So one of us is going to be right, John or myself.
Yeah. Donovan Mitchell, Hyung put it best, especially in basketball, and it pretty much works for all sports. And this is where I mentioned why fantasy is so important. If you play fantasy, it's not so much the stats that you're watching. It's more, especially if you're in dynasty leagues where you can trade draft picks and stuff like that. It's seeing human behavior for hype, right? So in basketball, it's very clear that years 1 to 3, there's the hype. And if the player just goes off in one of those years, it can really build up big time. Years 3 to 6, 3 to 7, this is where the hype starts to disappear. And that player really needs to start doing stuff like have a chance at MVP, have a chance at championships, go deep into the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. And then years 9 to wherever, you really need to see like a kind of like a Hall of Fame trajectory for the card values to maintain itself, right? So Donovan Mitchell, I feel like, is that perfect trap. He is right in that juicy middle part, the lull that Hyung says. He's in the lull, right? Because I don't think as strong as Utah is, there is nobody that really believes Utah is going to win anything, right? They time and time, the last three to 5 years, they've been near the top of the Western Conference. They look like they're going to get it done, and they just keep getting bounced out of the first round or whatever, right? So I don't think anybody really believes that Donovan Mitchell, as much of a stud as he is, he may, it's kind of like the Luka situation right now. Like you're not really seeing the championship. And at the same time, in terms of his personal career, I don't think you're really seeing MVP candidate either anymore, right? So he just kind of is what he is, right? Now, obviously a trade or something would really spark the value because then he could possibly actually win a championship on another team. Maybe that'll, whatever, right? But I think Donovan Mitchell, for me, he's one of those trap players because he's in that lull period and his card will seem like it's super low. But I don't really see it moving. But I mean, I will say, and I'll appreciate the strategy that Clark, you're taking is because you can't just, especially if you're trying to invest in something and you're trying to like come out ahead in the investing world in sports cards or in anything, you can't just keep going for the liquid and hope to bank money like that. You're going to have to hit some home runs somewhere. You're going to have to do something that nobody else is doing. Like right now, nobody's investing in Donovan Mitchell. And you're going to sometimes have to take that chance. Believe in something and do it, right? And those that, saw Vladdy fall off, like Hyung, and he invested heavy when nobody was investing heavy. Those that saw Ohtani fall off, multiple surgeries, looked like he might be, as much of a unicorn as he is, he might only play 50 games a season for the rest of his life. Nobody was on him, and those that took a chance and really did it, they hit home runs. And this is where you gain rewards exponentially, right? You're not just 1.5xing or 1.3xing. You're really making money. So
yeah.
I can appreciate your thought process, but I will say, I feel like Donovan Mitchell is just one of those trap players right now. They look like they're a buy low, but I don't know. I don't see it.
Tatum's the same way. I find
Tatum is getting there now. Yeah,
because he's playing lights out. Like, but it doesn't matter. Like, I like it's that lull that we talk about. It's just like there's so many, especially in the NBA. I find it more apparent in the NBA, to believe it or not, than the MLB. But maybe because there's less players and you see it with more players. But I think they're great plays. like the Donovan Mitchells, the Tatums, even the Bookers. Like some of the stuff is really expensive, but some of the stuff is really cheap, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
But good points, John.
Yeah, I agree for sure. One player I had in mind for me personally is, and I hate to admit this because I have his card, is Trae Young. I talk about Trae Young a lot in the show. I had a PSA 9 silver, which I sold for at a loss, and then I upgraded to PSA 10 because obviously everything's gone down. But it's still kind of going down a little bit even further. So at some point, you got to say, okay, maybe the market is kind of deciding right now that Trae Young is not the guy to invest in. So, my advice would be wait till it bounces up if it does, and then catch it on its way up instead of trying to time the bottom, because it's, for a guy like Trae, it's impossible.
It's crazy. Yeah, he's a buy for me. He's a constant buy. And here's a little tip. If you Trae investors, me included, I love Trae. I think he has huge upside. The best way to keep prices steady is stop selling. Hold your cards. Hold your high end. It will keep its price because of the supply, right? And the demand. Right. So it's like, just hold, stop selling.
For many collectors, so much easier said than done, Hyung.
Oh man, I know. It's paper-handed runs this world. I know. Me included. Don't worry.
And one other thing on this note, PSA 9 cards in general, they're so cheap. For a lot of these lower to middle end, PSA 9 has dropped significantly, a lot faster than the PSA 10s. So for those, don't get tempted by the, like I mentioned, save up a little bit more and go for the PSA 10, because those cards are going to have higher potential to bounce back further than the PSA 9s. For the higher end stuff, PSA 9's still totally a play, because for the higher end stuff, PSA 10s are unreachable by the mass amount of collectors, right? So PSA 9's a good play there. But yeah, for the lower to middle end, don't get tempted by the PSA 9 Luka Doncic silver prisms or base prisms. I mean, especially because you're gonna be holding the bag, I think.
Yeah, good point.
All right, all great points, guys. I think we'll just go on to our final segment of this episode, Pick One. And this week, our Pick One is our Hot Takes edition, where each of us comes out with 2 hobby hot takes, and then we debate on which one we think is likelier to happen. All right, so let's start with you, Hyung, as usual.
All right, very, very basic. Ja Morant is underpriced versus Luka is overpriced.
When I saw
Morant,
this,
underpriced versus Luka is overpriced.
When I saw this, it's one of you did it again. One of those things I kind of
put a
screwing with my brain.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm known to do that, Clark. I'm known to do that.
Don't want to pick any of these.
I'm like, I know. I don't think Ja Morant is underpriced, but Luka Doncic isn't. I don't believe it's overpriced either. So which one do I believe more? John, do you have a sense of which way you're gonna go?
Man, I don't want to pick either.
Sorry, boys. Didn't think this was gonna ruin your day.
No. You know what? I still firmly believe Luka is absolutely a generational player. So whatever overpriced or overhyped prices that anybody may think of him in terms of his NT and some of the crazier cards, I'm still going to say that he is not overpriced. So for that reason, I'm going to go the other side and say Ja Morant is underpriced, as much as his cards have been pretty hyped. Luka is what he is. He's generational. Ja is, I believe, like a notch below, but he's up there, man. He can become top 10 in the NBA. He can go all the way up. And Ja has a mixture of everything. When you watch him in college, in the NBA now, he's explosive, he's exciting, he dunks, he breaks people down with his moves, he's got IQ, he's not just a dummy, he's got it all. So I think Ja still has more to come, a lot more to come in his career to get to maybe a top 5 sort of angle. So I'm going to say Ja is underpriced as crazy as that might sound.
Fair enough. Yeah, it makes sense.
Versus the two.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you, Clark?
I'm still confused a little bit. So you're saying Ja Morant is underpriced because you think that Luka
is priced right.
Okay.
He's not overpriced.
Right.
Yeah. He's just basically going opposite to what we believe on the show. Like Luka is a buy low, Ja is really expensive now.
Exactly.
So he just flipped it around.
Yeah, that's what's messing with my head. I think I'm gonna go with. I just think Ja Morant is very, very overpriced right now for what he's done. So if I'm looking at the, immediate timeline, so I guess I'm choosing the other one that I think Luka is overpriced. You stumped me, man. You stumped me.
But there's no reasoning why Luka's overpriced. It's just because Ja is
overpriced. That's fine. That's a valid.
He just
reason.
firmly believes Ja's so overpriced that he'll just pick the other side.
Yeah, it's what's more likely, right?
Like I don't think Luka is overpriced in general, but but Ja's very, very overpriced. So like I don't believe that he's underpriced. As does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. For me, I think Luka is overpriced. I always thought he was overpriced. But we did see a correction. So, and big time correction. We're talking like Luka prices. If you were in the game in 2019, my goodness, like Luka was the bridge to Zion that exploded basketball, right? So for me, I still think Ja has room to grow, to believe it or not. Okay. So I'm gonna say Luka is overpriced right now. I do believe Ja Morant is overpriced too. So don't get me wrong, but I just think it's somewhere in between Luka and Ja. I agree. Right now, Luka is, like John said, is that tier 1 player, the GOAT, generational talent. Ja Morant still, he showed a lot this season. To me, I'm sold on Ja's talent like I was initially sold on him in 2019. And even back then, I thought he was expensive, but he just obviously, is going up a lot. So he is a lot more expensive right now. And but I think Luka in general has been overpriced, and that's why you're seeing a correction. You're literally seeing it like a 2-year correction. You're probably going to see that in Ja in a couple of years, to be honest. Right? So, but sorry, boys, for throwing another wrinkle in your brain.
No,
I try, changing it up a little bit once in a while.
Yeah, I think no, but to your argument, thinking about it a little bit deeper, like ultimately, I think Luka has the higher ceiling because of the longevity in career. Like Ja's explosive. I love Ja too. Like I love it. I love how he plays the game. I love what he means to the NBA, and he's like that kind of guy you can market around 100%. Right. But in terms of longevity, in terms of like when we talk about GOAT players, I think Luka's more likelier to achieve GOAT status than Ja Morant.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question about Ja Morant. Do you guys think Ja Morant is going to start shooting more as his career progresses? So look at like a Vince Carter career, because we grew up watching Vince Carter, and his first 2-3 years, man, that's all he would do is dunk. And that's what got the fans hooked, right? And then afterwards, I think something clicked for Vince Carter. He realized he can't do this for 15, 20 years. Right. He started developing an outside game. Like I remember from when he entered the league to the late 90s, maybe 3-4 years in, he was actually a threat on the perimeter, right? So this is kind of random. Do you guys see Ja changing his game at all? Because
100%.
Like, I think he's going to become a shooter 100%. At the end of the day.
And he's got the IQ to adjust and make those changes when his body doesn't do the things that he normally does. So I see it totally.
Yeah.
He's got the craft in his game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
just wanted to throw that out there.
Let's revisit this in 5-6 years. All right, good one. I like it. John, you want to go next?
Yeah. All right, boys. We're going to go Luka and the Mavs will surprise everyone and win the championship this year. Or Darius Garland and the Cavs in the Eastern Conference will surprise everyone and win the championship this year.
Stop it.
Hot takes edition, man. Hot takes edition.
No, for me,
stop it too. What?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I'll be quick. I'm saying. Sorry, where are we at?
Garland and the Cavs or Luka and the Mavs?
Yeah, Luka and the Mavs for me, 100%. I think this is the year. I said it earlier in the show. Everybody's laughing. Luka's not a playoff team. He has nobody. But guess what? He went through some adversity, and they are winning. And he is putting up points, and I think he's fed up. Darius Garland is a nice player. First-time All-Star. I think he's going to have a great career. I just don't think he's mature enough to carry Cleveland all the way. I think Luka's season, he's prime, he's ready. He has a lot of haters and doubters still. So I'm going to say Luka for sure, 100%.
Yeah. Come on, John, stop it. Come on.
Stop it, John.
Garland and
Darius
the Cavs,
Garland?
really?
I like Garland, though. But
Garland's a nice player for sure. Underrated, I think, but and I love the Cavs story. They're a pleasant surprise to see how well they played this year, but I think there's a limit, I love Mobley too. I love, how those young guys always kind of gel together. But when it comes to the playoffs, I think we're going to see the teams rise to the crowd. And, with Porzingis gone, the Mavs have just gotten better, right?
That's what they needed. Exactly. They needed to get rid of Porzingis.
So I think, I'm it's the same going with Luka and the Mavs.
Wow, man. I thought, the reason why I picked Luka is there's so many people that just don't believe it yet. They believe in Luka, but they don't believe in the team. They are I was actually going to pick the Raptors instead of the Cavs to see what you guys thought.
Oh boy.
But it wouldn't have worked out because you guys clearly believe in Luka and the Mavs, so it's a little different. You know what? I'm going to pick, to no surprise, as much as I want Luka to win it, I don't think they have the team yet. I don't think they're there yet. So of the two crazy hot takes, I'm going to go with the Cavs.
Wow.
And I think they're just not there yet because they're too young. But the team is built really well, man. Garland is blossoming into a stud, into an all-star player. You've got some pretty cagey veterans like Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen. And then Evan Mobley, they got Jared Allen. They just got Karis LeVert. They're actually surprisingly deep and they're making some noise right now. I don't think anybody thought they were a playoff team this year, but here they are, right? So I personally don't think, and I hope I'm completely wrong on this. I don't think Luka and the Mavs can win it. So of the two unlikely scenarios, I think the Cavs could surprise. Who knows? With Kyrie being able to play home games now, I think that's big trouble for the entire Eastern Conference. But I'm going to go with the Cavs.
Okay. I see your perspective. It's valid, 100%.
Yeah,
because they have the right. I think they have the right team. They're just really young.
Exactly.
Whereas Luka,
I was just looking at it as Darius Garland's gonna lead the charge, over.
Oh, I see. Maybe
Luka.
I posed the question
so
wrong.
that in that. Obviously, Luka has a lot to do. He's gonna have to carry that, put the team on his back,
literally
basically saying I am the goal. But if he does that, that's what we want. We want to see that Luka's prices.
That's where the car prices go ridiculous.
That's right. I like it. Both hot takes for sure. So that's what this segment's all about. All right, I'll close off the show with my 1v1, my pick one. The first one is Zion Williamson. I don't know if you saw the clip of him dunking. I
thought he had a broken whatever, and he's doing
right fractured foot. Yeah.
He's doing under the leg dunks.
Looks like he's getting back in shape. But anyway, my on one side I got Zion Williams rookie cards by the end of next season. It's going to be worth more than Ja Morant, rookie cards, who we just talked about in depth, versus Zion Williamson rookie cards are going to be pretty much worth nothing by the end of next season.
Wow.
So the referendum question really here is if you believe in Zion or not.
That's what I think when I was reading this, I think in conclusion, do you believe in Zion? It's interesting because anybody who's been part of that 2019 Prism they know Zion was the number one chase, and Ja Morant was a big chase too, but he was number two. And it's kind of refreshing, honestly, to see Ja Morant prices surpass Zion, because I think a lot of people had that in their mind anyways, and Zion's longevity was kind of like the issue, right? So for me, I don't see Zion prices. Oh, this is tough because they were there, but for me, I'm going to say Zion Williamson rookie cards will be close to nothing after next season.
Whoa.
More so than
they
will be worth more than Ja Morant
really
rookie cards next season.
Okay,
yeah, I know. I'm throwing the whole Odin comparison, but like for me, he's played 33% of his active games, career. and to me, I've seen where prices have been with Zion, and they were crazy. They're like Luka crazy. And for him to get back to that, he's gonna have to put up a whole career. And Ja Morant is already on that trajectory to me, and it's too late. You're already seeing prices tank on Zion because I believe he was shut down again. It was like, is he gonna come up? And then it's like, that was the only hope. Everybody's selling now, right? So I think his prices are gonna take an absolute crap this summer, which could be a great buying period if you believe in Zion, right? So I'm gonna go Zion Williamson's rookie cards will be worth close to nothing after next season. They will be worth more than Ja Morant, even though they're both absolutely hot takes too. Yeah.
Wow,
gotcha.
Crazy, because I'm the one that hates on Zion, and you made that. Like
Twilight Zone.
From the beginning, I told myself, no, I'm not touching Zion cards, and even more so now for obvious reasons. But I'm going to pick the other way. I think there are just too many people that love Zion, and unless we see some ridiculous, and what Hyung is saying, it could be definitely possible. So another freak injury, and he only plays 15% of next season. Man, watch out. His cards can go, it could happen. And that could be just as likely as him coming and making noise, right? But I think he's still in that, I think he's still, we talked about the theory of like the 1 to 3 and the 3 to 6 and the lull periods and all that stuff. Zion is still in that hype stage. As much as his cards have really corrected like crazy, he's in the tail end of that hype stage, and he could do anything. He can come back 20 games, average 31 points, getting like crazy windmill dunks a game, and boom, his card is going past Ja Morant's for no reason, just because of the hype, right? So I think he's still in that hype stage. He's hanging on to it barely, but it's there, and he just needs to come back and play. And if he loses 30 pounds or whatever, I mean, he's already doing the dude is doing like between the legs, he's probably like 280 pounds, and he's doing that. It's ridiculous.
He probably fractured his other foot when he landed. Like, that was crazy. I'm like, that's some serious weight just like
coming down on his
forcing. Yeah, it's like,
seriously.
Go in the cold tub or something. Like, stop. Yeah, get healthy.
Don't scare me. Like, I'm thinking about it. That clip kind of ended abruptly, so I don't know what happened after that.
Where he was stumbling down.
Oh man, God bless that kid.
All right.
I feel like it's so unlikely for his cards to be worth close to nothing. So, yeah, I'm going to go the other way. Yeah.
It's interesting. You guys went to different extremes.
Tiebreaker.
I am the tiebreaker. So, I also think these are extreme hot takes, but I'm going with the likelihood is that Zion Williamson's rookie cards will be worth more than Ja Morant. So yeah, I don't believe it's going to go close to zero. And I think I did mention the stipulation is by the end of next season. So this is more short term. I'm believing in he won't play probably for the rest of this year, but he'll rehab and be in condition to at least start next season. And I think if he does even 85% of what he did before he got injured, with playing point a lot and then, mixing that in with some of his dunks, like I think people will start to get excited again. And the other factor is guys like me who have a Zion card, we're all going to be rooting hard for his value to pump back up. And, if I'm honest, I'll probably sell at that time just to get just to get out because I'm a little nervous for his longevity, his career longevity. But yeah, I think by next season, if he starts to dunk again, and what we saw in that Instagram or TikTok video of his, if that's a precursor to what we're going to see next year, yeah, I think people will get really excited, and then we'll start to see those prices pump. So yeah, I'm gonna side with John. That's the tiebreaker.
And let's not forget your whole Donovan Mitchell to the New York Knicks. Like, it looks like, will Zion he may not even be on the Pelicans next year.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, the Pelicans didn't even have him on their season ticket marketing campaign, which
that's
is
not a good sign.
So seems like it's writing on the wall. So let's
go.
Don't forget about that.
Let's go Zion to the Knicks too. Let's go. All right, nice. Okay, thanks guys for listening to Cards to the Moon, and we really do appreciate you guys leaving feedback, giving us questions, and giving us 5 stars on wherever you listen to your podcast. So yeah, until next week, we'll see you soon. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.